the big leagues and over the moon.
Welcome to the Landing Strip with Nick Lynham and Mikey Garcia, presented by From Financial.
Welcome back to the Landing Strip, presented by From Financial, as the Winnipeg Jets tie the Atlanta Thrashers from their expansion season for the franchise record 10 straight L's. They do it on this night, on a night where Luke Shengo's barred down. Cole Perfetti breaks a 17 was it? Game goalless drought. John the Taves gets on the board. They have about, 6 chances in 3-on-3. They get themselves a 2-goal lead. And they still cannot hold on. They brought themselves up 1 goal with just over 5 minutes left. And they still found a way to not get 2 points. The Winnipeg Jets tank. Folks, this is where I'm at. It is going to be hard to get me wound up about this team moving forward. The acceptance stage is here. There is something truly comedically hilarious about what we're watching unfold with this team. As Choices TK says over on Twitch, you can't explain it. It's like a Final Destination movie. Don't know how they're going to lose, just that it's going to happen. And today I got a bit of a different vantage point in this one. I don't know if I'm going to be great at calling what was happening from the top of the ice. I was second row for this one. The Hellbucks left for 2 periods. And the whole Final Destination movie thing. John Molloy, thank you for bringing me, my boy. Brought me right to that second row spot. And Sandberg takes that penalty up 2-0 with just over a minute left in the period. And I said to him, John, there's 2 outcomes here. If Vegas scores before this period's over, the Winnipeg Jets will lose this hockey game. If they get to intermission, up 2, we might see the first win in 10 games. 13 seconds later, the Winnipeg Jets get scored on that PK. They get Vegas gets another chance with 12 seconds left, and we go to the third period. And talk about a third period for Team Tank. I don't know about you guys. From where I was watching, felt like there was a lot of stuff at my end in that third period. That felt inevitable. And they somehow bring it to OT. And Tank Commander Arnie doesn't want his top guys out for an offensive zone face-off. Not 1, but 2. The entire team knows the assignment. I have never felt better about what we're stuck watching tonight than watching them blow that one. They were up in this game. There was 1 point. I'm just cheering for obscurity at this point with the Winnipeg Jets. So there's 1 point. The shots were 23-3 or 23-9, sorry, with 11 minutes left. And I was cheering for a Winnipeg Jets win without reaching double-digit shots. This is the type of stuff we were watching here tonight. It's remarkable. It's NHL history. How do you actually put the words to what we're seeing properly? Kevin Cheveldayoff will be a household name in the NHL history books. We're going to be talking about this Winnipeg Jets team for decades. And once we accept the reality of what this is, there's 41 games left. I'm not sure this 10-game losing streak, given how many of them were 1-goal games that they felt into it, is going to be the darkest part of the season yet. And they haven't won in 10 games. On the NHL standings, you can go look at what a team's done in the last 10 games. There's not a single win for the Winnipeg Jets in the last 10 games. You'd think by pure luck that they would stumble into a win here. And Carter Hart, the PR nightmare, someone decided in this league that he was worth the headache. What a terrible goaltender at this stage in his life. He wanted the Jets to win. He was prepared for the Vegas streak to hit 6. Like, we can't even beat a Vegas team that can't beat anybody right now. I don't know where I want to go with this. Let's bring in Mikey. How are you doing tonight, Mikey?
All right, everybody. Clear the lungs. Shake it out. Get ready, because there's only one. You know what, Nick? You were saying you don't know what words to describe this. I know what the words are, and we're going to hit them here.
Don't stop
Thinking about tomorrow. It'll soon be here. And every day that this goes by, it will be here sooner. We're getting there day by day, loss by loss, brick by brick. We are building that road to the #1 overall draft pick. Because what else could there be? What else could there be in a game where neither team looked like they wanted to win? Neither one of them. They were actively trying to lose this game. I honestly believe it. They were both just trying to throw it away constantly. The Jets found a way to, really get over, put themselves over the hump and lose the game that they should have absolutely won. The old cliche is, snatching defeat out of the jaws of victory, but that's exactly what happened here today. They were superhuman, in fact, super heroic in getting this loss today. So shout out, the tank rolls on. Big shout out. We got to hand out our tank award.
There's a few different candidates, I think.
So many candidates that you can get across in this one. So it's, we're here for it. I'm excited.
You know what? I found myself there sitting there. So like I said, I was close to the ice today. And talk about a different perspective on this sport. Seeing that truly high-end guys, like a guy like Jack Eichel, there's a lot of talk about the idea of guys at the elite level are able to slow things down and have the game come to them. You see that with Jack Eichel when he's out there. The little plays in Mark Scheifele's game that are a bit more subtle than the TV allows. The patience with the offensive players. You think, I want to get this rebound and get it to net, like Jack Eichel in that first power play. And instead he sets it up for a better chance. Watching the game from that angle brought back a true love and respect for the sport again. And watching how fast it is. And watching from that angle, you're thinking about trying to figure out what they're thinking. Because you can't read it from above like I can normally do. And one thing that was incredible was watching that last sequence in overtime, where it was like, Sandberg had a chance, Barron had a chance, Taves had a chance. That was all right in front of me. And as soon as that divulged and it didn't go in, I've never felt that comfortable that a game was over. This team is so predictable at this point that you just got to enjoy the things. You know what I felt good about today? Luke Schenn goes bar down. We give that guy a hard time. He goes bar down on this night. Didn't think we'd see that the rest of the season. He also challenges Keegan Kolesar not once, but twice to a scrap in this one. So he was engaged. There was even a big hit there. He gets beat on some other stuff, and we'll get into that another day. But you know what? Felt good for Luke Schenn. Goes bar down. Felt really good for Cole Perfetti getting on the board. Nice play from Morrissey and Taves. Perfetti goes far post. And you saw him crack that smile. We've talked about on the show at times how the mental game with Cole Perfetti is not a strong suit. So for him to get one, you feel good for the guy. And they still find a way to keep us all happy. I don't even know what to say about this one. Mikey, what is your big takeaway tonight?
To answer a question that was asked in the chat, how many one-goal losses have the Jets had this season? I just took a quick look. 15. 15 of their losses have been one goal so far. It's pretty rough. So, my takeaway was that nobody wanted to win this game. The Jets, they didn't. They absolutely did not. I know you said you didn't get to see much being, up close, so you didn't get to see the overhead view. Don't worry, the Jets made sure you didn't miss anything. Right? There were 9 shots going into that third period. Some of the sloppiest play I've ever seen. It was painful to watch, truly. I was pulling my hair out one by one just to keep awake during stretches of it. It's, we've given the Jets, we've even tried to give the Jets the benefit of the doubt in some of the losses where we've talked about, the compete level was there. It was just a couple boneheaded plays that, cost them the game. If they had won this game, would you have felt any better? No.
Oh, God, no.
God, no. Right?
God,
you had one of the worst goaltending performances I've ever seen from anybody, period. Despite the fact that you went out and put Carter Hart in your fucking net to begin with. And then to go out and first almost lose to him, I thought was going to be embarrassing. I was going to be like, God, we won that game, but we should be embarrassed that it was so difficult to, get it. They lost to Hart. One of the worst performances I've ever seen on television. Just sloppy, absolutely terrible play right across the board. I'm starting to feel bad for Scott Arniel, to be honest, between the way the team has kind of responded the last couple games. Kevin Cheveldayoff yesterday really putting it all on Arniel's feet, and then his comments again today at the intermission putting it all at Arniel's feet. I'm starting to think that, the writing might be on the wall for Scotty.
Oh, the writing is so on the wall. If Chevy was talking about, like you mentioned, the idea that he was still talking about the defensive structure, we're watching Scotty walk the plane at some point here. It's just inevitable. And on that topic, Zero Ghost 8 says, NHL Jets coach Scott Arniel on seeing his team winless streak stretch to 10 games. This is just Groundhog Day. These things seem to happen a lot recently. Just got to stay with it. I know it's hard to hear, but we got to find a way. Caitlin Doucette and Zero Ghost 8 go the same direction with this saying, make sure it's known that Luke Shen will not go 100 games without a goal. But I wanted to shout out Huge Ass Vibes in the chat saying, because I found myself mostly out of hilarity thinking this in the ring today. Huge Ass Vibe says, hey, Nick, if only we had Chaz in the lineup today. At the start of the show, and I've seen it over on YouTube already, let's move into the tank award. Who is your tank commander on this night where I think there's a lot of people we could talk about getting this award on this night? Let's hear who you got for the tank award in the chat. Let's talk about who our most loyal commanders are to the greater good of the Winnipeg Jets here.
It's been a bit of a pet peeve of mine, something I can't seem to get over. And once again, our boy Scott Arniel shows that when it comes to overtime and managing the game at the end there, man, he's playing chess while everyone else is playing Monopoly or hockey. Like he has no fucking clue what he's doing. I know you're sending a message. That's all well and good. Other points in the game. It's fucking overtime, dog. You have an actual cheat code in overtime generally with your starting guys that you would normally put out there. And the fact that we love to just get cute with it. We're going to put Lowry out there. We're going to, Barron and Lowry, they're the duo that's going to take us over in overtime. It's hilarious. I laugh every time. When we get down late in these games, whether it's, chasing and we have to pull the goalie or we're getting into overtime, I just know Scotty's going to find a new and interesting way to really put this game out of reach for the Jets. So once again, I've got to give it to Scott Arniel.
So I think there's a few. Dylan DeMello, another contender on this night for a few failed clears that lead to Winnipeg Jets goals. I think you could give it to the power play one when they get a chance with 9:37 to go. And Vegas gets 2 odd man rushes the other way. And Josh Morrissey takes a penalty to go to 4-4. I think you go that direction. But I think there is one shining candidate above all, and our YouTube chat is getting it. The Tank Award. I'll shout out Mackie to start, who was on it early in the chat. I don't think anyone beat him to it. Saying, the Tank Award in all caps. He's fired up. Tank Award to Sandberg. Watch the video I tweeted. I will check it out after. Says, bro could have flicked the puck in the net, but bro decided to be fancy and turn chat. Mr. Meowcat's tank award is my tank award. If you're pulling for a tank, I'm pulling for the franchise a move. Fuck off, Mr. Meowcat. We had this debate all day because, as I understand it, Mr. Meowcat is a bit of an older fan. He's seen it all in Jets 1.0 history, and we appreciate him being there. But Mackie goes the right place. For me, it's Dylan Sandberg on this one. Team's up 2-0. Take a late penalty in the second. Immediately get scored on. In OT, get a chance to bury. Don't do it. And then you take the penalty, send Vegas to the power play. One thing I had noticed in this one, Jack Eichel had caught Sandberg right near where I was sitting, and he seemed really wound up the rest of the game. He looked to be extending some of the closeouts he'd normally do to throw a hit. I think they got in his head a little bit, but also this was just a brutal performance from Sandberg. Couple penalties, both lead the goals against. Dylan Sandberg, my guy. Hate to do it to you. But on this night, it's unfortunately Dylan Sandberg.
Yeah, that's a good call. It's not the Sandberg we're used to seeing. It's it's quite noticeable when you've got Sandberg off. It almost reminds you of the games where he's not in there at all, and you've got really just Morrissey and then 5 other guys.
Frosty says Mackey has it with the tank award to Sandberg. Caitlin Doucette says joint award to Taves and Sandberg for not finishing the 3 tap-ins Velarde gave them on that one OT shift.
Yep.
Think that's fair. Velarde was in playmaker mode there, and unfortunately, a couple stone hands on the end of it. Mike Rowling gives the tank award to Dylan Sandberg on this night. Tony Valeri points out that Coach Arneal, who Doug Henderson nominates for this award, Tony Valeri says he's run 55 and 81 into the ground, and you can only run your top guys 24 plus minutes for so long on the offensive side.
Yep.
Matt Hyman points out with the tank award stuff that he has no issues with it, and I don't think anyone should when you look at the reality of the business side of things the Winnipeg Jets find themselves in.
Here's the thing, right? If the Jets weren't serving us up on a platter all of these ridiculous ways of giving up the game, we wouldn't have to have a tank award.
Awesome.
Right? I had to replace the Squirtle button on my Stream Deck because we don't use it anymore. I still have it ready to go if we need to, but like it's not in service, right? We haven't had to do this in quite a long time. So, until the Jets find ways to actually win a game as opposed to find ways to lose it, well, we're going to keep rolling out that tank, baby.
I'm glad Palmer Lane over on YouTube brought this point up because this was on my notes for honorable mentions of tank awards because it was one of those moments. What the hell are we doing? What are we doing? Like, this is a game where I thought Morrissey made boneheaded plays. I thought the top line, which is always a struggle with Vegas for this group, and I don't think that should be a surprise when you look at how good Vegas defends the slot of their zone, how mobile some of their bigger D are when they have two-way forwards like Marner and Stone. And I got to say, the one thing that pissed me off today, Mitch Marner, at like 28 years old, one of the superstars in the NHL, Vegas Golden Knights are allowed to experiment with him being center at this point of his career, and we can't split up 2 guys. Like, it's just, there's little things when I'm at games now when I notice, and it just pisses me off about how things are set up. But going back to Parmaline's point, says, Helly looked uninterested in this game. In OT, he negated the icing by coming out to play the puck. What the hell was that all about? Vegas is able to get a full-scale change in overtime after that big scramble play where we were talking about Sandberg, Velarde, Sandberg. Vegas ices it. Hannafin's toast. He is so gassed, he just hammers it down the ice. And instead of getting the icing and the whistle and getting a fresh set of your top group against the tired group, he negates the icing. And then he also points out, and then he covered the puck. He passes it to nobody on another night player. Some real baffling decisions from Connor Hellebuyck in overtime in this one where he easily could have been the tank commander of the night. Doug Henderson says, what about paper bag night tank commander? I saw it made its way into the Sun this week too.
Yep.
At some point, something's going to happen on this homestand, I think. We're talking about 10 straight. And the interesting part for me, again, that rink was behind the Jets. Larry's fight, they lose it. We got to talk about that play.
Yep.
And Hayden Fleury, obviously. When the Jets go up 2, that crowd loses it. When Connor puts them up 1, that place loses it. And as soon as they tied the game, there was such a nervous anticipation. Everyone in that building had the same feeling that things were about to go south. And they indeed did, once again, for the Winnipeg Jets.
Miranda over on Facebook says, it's like a bad horror movie. I know it ends bad, but I'm just waiting to see how they pull it off. Because that's exactly it, right? I know Stranger Things has been in the zeitgeist quite a bit lately with its final season and all that. This honestly does feel like the upside-down version of the Winnipeg Jets, right? Last season, it felt like they were in every game, even if they were down a goal late. You just knew they were going to find a way to make this interesting, get back into it. I remember there was a couple back-to-back games where they scored with like 25 seconds left in one game and like 15 seconds left in another game. And it's like, yeah, they're able to find ways. This is the opposite. They find ways to lose it. That Connor Hellebuck play is a prime example of what I meant by like, nobody wanted to win this game. Even Hellebuck was tired of playing in this fucking game. He's like, here, I don't give a shit. One of you guys score. It's just that the Knights were bad enough, unfortunately, not to be able to capitalize. And Carter Hart wasn't trying to be bad. He just fucking sucks. So it just, yeah, it was a strange game that just nobody wanted to be a part of.
Few more comments on this, and then we'll go. Caitlin Doucette says 55 and 81 can't start OT because they play nearly 2.5 minutes straight to end the third in a tie game every time. Incredible game management by our coach.
I want to talk real quick. Hold on. Sorry. In the pregame today, they asked Scott Arniel a question that I thought was about to be, how come we haven't seen Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele apart? The question starts off, you've tried every combination so far, almost every combination so far, with the forwards under the sun. How? And I'm like, oh, great, we're going to get a direct question about it. How do you feel about Gabe Vilardi going on in second on the second line to really get his own line? I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? We're not even... it's just, we don't need to, burn them into the ground by playing them over, 24 minutes a game on that same line every game because you have nobody else, right? The option is there. He can do it. It's just he's not allowed or he gets in trouble. It's bananas that we end up in this spot at the end of the game where those guys are just beat and fucking gassed because they've had to play so many tough minutes. And we're just like, yep, nothing we can do about it. Oh, well.
Well, I thought, too, being there, I think down the stretch, especially the last 10 minutes and overtime, you do see so starkly the roster differences between Vegas and the Winnipeg Jets. On that 4-on-4, we're sending John Taves and Alex Iafallo out on a 4-on-4 in 2026. You know who came out the other side for Vegas? Marner and Eichel, I think it was?
I think so, yep.
And then they get to send out like Riley Smith and Stone for the back half of the 4-on-4. And then it becomes a power play. And guess what? Marner and Eichel are back out there with the man advantage. We're seeing Marner get shifts with Saad as a centerman to get extra minutes against Jonathan Taves. They get a goal. And then you get to overtime, as we've known all year. There's one duo in Winnipeg. There's 3 players. In overtime, you only need 6 players. You need 2 lines. And we don't have that. I thought this comeback, it was so stark to see the talent differential in the back half of that third period and the matchups that Vegas was able to get down the stretch of this team. But lastly, on the 10 Commander stuff, Tony Villari says Hallie was feeling left out and wants to be included. And hey, that was another game, I think, if I'm not mistaken, under 900. There's been a lot of those lately.
Yep.
Mike Friesen also says 100% negating that icing was extremely boneheaded, and also says another game where if we had Ehlers instead of Taves, the Jets win. This is 6-2 Jets, and everybody's high-fiving in the stands with last year's roster. Thoughts on that one?
Yeah, honestly, it's one of those things. You don't want to attribute always, too much to one individual player, especially in hockey, which is so much of a team game. Multiple guys always on the ice, lots of things that are happening, in and away from the puck. However, it gave the Jets the opportunity to not, because they were so rigid with it last year, and it covered that up, right? You had Ehlers on that second line who could make Perfetti into something, that made Nemestikov into something, and confused the Jets management into thinking they were the, they were the ones moving the needle there. So yeah, it's kind of hard to say that, they're going to go out and add, a whole bunch of extra goals and limit things so much to that point. But I do think this is a prime example of a game where if you even just had a second, grouping, a middle six that had a little bit of creativity to it, maybe you do find a way not to lose to the worst fucking goaltender I've seen in the last 5 years.
Yeah. Here's a question for you I find interesting. Caitlin Doucette said last year they were 8th to 10th best team and were getting lucky to get to the level they did. And now they're about the 22nd best team and getting extremely unlikely. What do you think of that take on the range of where the Winnipeg Jets really are with this roster and what's kind of helped propel them last year and has them in dead last, completely stalled? I've never felt so comfortable we're watching a bottom 3 team. This is unbelievable.
Yeah, I don't know if it's recency bias, but I feel like calling them the 22nd best team and getting unlucky is still giving them a little too much credit. I'm not even trying to poke fun at it. I actually don't think they are the 22nd out of 32nd best teams. I don't know if I would put 10 teams better than the Jets legitimately at this moment, luck or not. It's just they don't fit together, right? You to win a championship, a lot of times you need the sum of your parts to be, bigger than the total, right? You want everybody to kind of play bigger than they are, to produce more than what they're used to being able to do. The Jets have the exact opposite of that right now, right? You've got so many guys that are underperforming, but also they just don't fit together. Like, it's just not a group that's built to really work that well, as a group, and also they're just not talented enough to hang in there. So yeah, I still think 22 might be a little bit too high for where they are currently at the moment. But yeah, that's luck played a lot of it, last year, and it is impacting things right now for sure.
I think Caitlin Doucette's nailing that, to be honest, because that would be about 11th worst. And I kind of said on the last show that I think next year that they will bounce back and be in that 10 to 15 range. I do think with an average bottom 6 or middle 6, this team is probably sitting around that spot right now, if not even a little higher with some of the goaltending early on in the season.
So one Chaz Lucius away.
We're one Chaz Lucius away, though. Yeah, I think when I was looking at that game, I was thinking in overtime. Actually, I want to pull this up too, but I was thinking in overtime, if only Chaz Lucius didn't medically retire, we could have had him out there. You know how shameless this is, this whole Chaz Lucius thing? Like, I get the context, but I think it's so meme-worthy. We're talking about a guy last year that before he retired had 9 points in 25 games with the Manitoba Moose. Chevy, let's be honest with ourselves, buddy. Right. But hey, he could have made the difference today.
They're Chad Lucius and Andrew Mangiapane away from being a contender. That's really all they're missing, and they're right back into it. They're gonna go on a winning streak. Scott O'Neill said today. So
I'm gonna bounce around. There's a lot. The chat's taking us a few interesting places. Let's go to Twitch first, where Zero Go State goes somewhere I want to talk about. So there was a segment of our audience that I thought was a little harsh on Eric Comrie. Now, we know Eric Comrie is not a starting goalie, and the idea of him playing 10 straight to anybody should be concerning. But there was a lot of talk. I even saw it a little bit today in some of the chats, in some of the Discord servers and such like that, that Eric Comrie tanked the season, which I think is nuts. Nuts. I just want to point this out as a bit of defense of Eric Comrie, but also where the Jets MVP's numbers have lied. Zero Go State on Twitch. Helly's last 7 games, 871, 852, 895, 900, 789, 818, 885. Not a single game over 900. Are you worried about Connor Hellebuyck right now?
So, not so much worried in the sense that, like, I think his game is over and, like, he's over the hill now and, this is who he is. I think the team in front of him is really fucking bad. I think he might be a little fucking tired of playing behind this mess of a fucking group. I was initially worried that he came back from the injury too soon. Everybody told me I was crazy about that and they would never allow that to happen. So I don't want to say that it's injury, maybe lingering related if we're all still pretty set on, nope, he's totally 100% healthy. Because if that's the case, then it's a mental thing. And I'm fucking sick and tired of playing behind this bullshit. And also the team in front of him is that bad. They are legitimately at the point of being Connor Hellebuyck proof bad, which is saying something. Incredible. Which again, I go back to, this is not a group that's built to fit together properly, to play the system that Kevin Cheveldayoff is dead set that they can still play and win by. And that's really what the problem is. They're just not playing the system. They're not sticking to the structure. And once they do, everything will be fine. I don't believe that. I think they are Connor Hellebuyck proof bad at the moment.
I know it was mentioned earlier with the tank commander about Helly feeling checked out. It looks like Turd Ferguson has a similar take, saying Helly has checked out, thinking about the Olympics. I do think it's fair to say Connor Hellebuck has not been the all-world savior this year that he has been in years past. That's helped elevate this thing. Um, in a in a bunch of one-goal games, it's probably about an even split right now. I'd have to look, but of games where the Jets scored 2 or less, or games where the Jets scored 3 or 4 and still didn't get a win. So I do think he should um, wear a little bit of this. Not as much as maybe I've seen elsewhere, but we got to talk about it.
Yep.
Caitlin Doucette does add. That still only puts him at a -1 goal saved above expected over the last 10 games. That's how bad the defense has been, which is I think is fair. And we know the GM thinks the defensive structure is the biggest problem on the team.
Yeah.
Bodie Clegg, go for it.
I was just going to say, the cognitive dissonance you need to have to blame Eric Comrie for this and not Kevin Cheveldayoff is absolutely incredible. Like, the mental gymnastics that you've got to go through to look at what's gone on this season and say, yeah, that was Eric Comrie's fault, not the guy who had no credible backup for Connor Hellebuck. Not like there's so many ways that this is not. We know that Eric Comrie should not be starting 10 games, right? So it's just it's insane to me that people could look at the season up to this point and say, yeah, Eric Comrie's been the issue.
Okay, couple more takes on this Helly thing, and I want to bounce to a few people have gone different ways I want to go, so we're going to try and get to it all here. We got to get to the From Financial face-off here shortly, too. Bodie Clegg says, I would never be worried about Helly. The team sucks ass in front of him. Pomeranian says, but so many folks were saying that once Helly got back, the team would be okay. They've now lost his last 9 straight starts. Rob Mahoney raises an interesting point that I'm intrigued by. Says, I don't think they'd force a player to be injured, but I wonder if they would protect them from themselves. Buff came back from the 19 playoffs off an ankle injury and never could skate professionally again.
Yep.
I'm totally on the idea of sending Connor Hellebuck on a good fishing trip after the Olympics and shutting him down and making sure he's healthy for next season, because it is very clear he's not saving the Jets. There's no need to run him 10 games in a row the rest of the year like we just saw on the recent stretch. This thing's cooked, and every little resource should be aimed towards next year.
100% agree. There's no point in having him re-injure himself or get absolutely burnt out, or just even the mental stress of, again, playing behind this garbage fucking team in front of him. It's tough.
Last point here. Brendan LeBar says, watching this game was a slow burn. When 91-19-13 looked fine, you know it's only a matter of time before a competent team revs it up to take over with speed. Speed gets you chances in PEPs. Like that point from him. Wanted to touch on that one because it leads into the From Financial face-off. I see there's a lot of trade talk. I see there's some Arneal talk. We'll get to that on the back half of the show. But let's get to the From Financial face-off. We want to hear from you. What was the difference between the Winnipeg Jets and the Las Vegas Golden Knights tonight?
Let's hit it. Right on. Phone lines will be open, guys. 1-204-800-0409. 1-204-800-0409. Get on the line. Give us a call. Let us know about your From Financial face-off or anything else you want to talk about.
Bodie will jump into the top 3 of the draft after this combo. Mr. Meowcat will jump into this trade talk after this combo. But let's talk about it. Mikey, on this night, what is your From Financial face-off?
Oh, God. This one was again, super tough because the Jets gave you nothing to work off of in this game. 9 shots on goal into, halfway into the third period is atrocious. Like, it wasn't a real hockey game. Nobody wanted to play in it. Nobody wanted to win this game. Luckily for the Jets, I guess Vegas is also dog shit at the moment. So it felt like, hey, maybe that'll be some home cooking can get them over, get a win, get a little bit of, get some positive vibes at least in the grouping. But no, they still found a way to lose this. They couldn't really, it was just bad. It was a bad game overall. The difference being that this roster is not built to succeed. They're not being put in positions to succeed. And it's a bad roster. That's my From Financial face-off. That's all I got on this one.
On the From Financial Face-Off, I see HH Living Loco. It says everyone feeling a little more human lately in response to the heli numbers. Over on YouTube, Mike Rolling goes where I want to go, and you kind of went there as well with the roster. Mike Rolling 13 says talent was the main difference, and to me it was just so stark, especially for the third period push in OT. When you look at some of the matchups you were saying in a home game for Winnipeg,
In a home
and there was
game.
like not other options.
Like, it's insanity. In the pregame today, Scott Arniel talked about, we're back at home. I've got last change. I can really control the matchups. I can make sure that we're taking care of our guys. Your fourth line gets fucking hemmed in all fucking night again at home. You have last change. You don't know what to do with it. You get to it's really, really frustrating because what's being said and then what's actually happening and being done are so vastly different that I'm starting to wonder if I don't speak English sometimes when I'm hearing the things that are coming out of their mouths.
Zero Go States from Financial Face-Off is Logan Stanley is legitimately our third best defenseman. Hey, was he healthy scratch tonight?
No, he was suspended for sucker punching Brady.
Oh, I forgot about that. I forgot that was just last game.
Yeah.
Holy
No,
shit.
this was his one game suspension for the sucker punch.
Which reminds me, we should talk about the Fleury thing coming out of the From Financial Face-Off. Harvey Van Perwana says the From Financial Face-Off is the real reason we suck. Losing Mason Appleton. Don't you do that to me. Don't you do that to me. Real DFB says Niederreiter, Nemestikov, Pearson, Nyquist could be placed on waivers tonight and replaced by kids from a Moose, and there would be no drop-off whatsoever. Roster ain't pretty, folks.
Yep.
I liked it from Ian Vivian in the chat said, I sat through 30-game winless streak in 1980-81. Until we reach that point, I am not worried. Talk about a seasoned vet in the chat.
Wow.
You're going to have to guide us through this every post-game. Thank you very much. Brendan Lombard's From Financial Face-Off was boosting the Golden Knights' confidence in OT. Being beneath 500 is embarrassing for them. Glad we could help out with the OT record. That Pacific Division, what a joke.
Yeah.
Every team coming in, negative goal differential. Vegas has lost like 8 of the last 9. And they're still top of the division. Ugly. Pomerlane says the From Financial Face-Off is only the Jets could let a worse OT team beat them. Mackie says, ran into Barlow and a couple Moose at the game today. Yeah, I saw them wandering around as well. I bet they're wondering if I could play better than these old bums. Caitlin Doucette says Chevy should have asked Kelly McCrimmon for some advice on team building when he was a coach on the Wheat Kings in the 80s. Did notice today, feels like we've talked about this a little bit. I remember you bringing this up the other day. Sure feels like the Manitobans like sticking it to the Jets.
Yep.
Stone goal, Howden goal, all over it. Keegan Kolesar was a buzzsaw on the forecheck.
Yep.
Ends up, unfortunately, putting Hayden Fleury out of this game. We see Adam Lowry answer the bell with a good tilt there. What did you think of the freak accident with Hayden Fleury and Keegan Kolesar tonight?
Yeah, it was scary to watch in real time, right? You see him go down, hit so hard. The impact was brutal. So really tough to watch. You never want to see that happen. You just hope Hayden's going to be, okay long term kind of thing. The actual play itself, I didn't see anything malicious in it. I didn't see anything intentionally dangerous that it was just Scott Arniel even said it in his comments at the end of the game. It was just a bad situation. It was some bad luck in a bad spot. So yeah, I don't think it was dirty. I don't think that it's warranted for any type of suspension or that Kolesar was trying to hurt Fleury or that he was even doing something so reckless that caused it. It just was a bad spot in my opinion. So really unfortunate. You never want to see that. The Jets PR account put out the update that he's at the hospital. He's okay, or not okay. Sorry, he's awake. He's moving everything around. So the little bit of info we got, at least it's positive. And they're going to let us know, he'll do more tests and things tomorrow, Scott Arniel said. So maybe we'll get an update then.
Yeah, never like to see that. Unfortunately, brought me back to a bit of a flashback. When I was coaching local hockey here, we had that situation happen, unfortunately, and a teenager ended
Oh,
up
jeez.
disabled. Very unfortunate. And it brought me back to that. No one wants to see that.
Yeah.
It's a fast physical game, and unfortunately, things like that happen at times, but that's where my brain went immediately. You could see Colasar kind of knew right away. He'd look back twice trying to skate off, and you could tell he'd felt bad. He immediately was trying to talk down the Jets leadership group. I know Luke Shen had asked him to scrap. And it was one of those plays where the stronger player just kind of shoved the other guy, and he ended up sliding in a very awkward way.
Yep.
Hope all is good there with Hayden Fleury. No one wants to go to games and see something like that happen. Unfortunately, a byproduct of the sport. Tough to see. Tough moment. Impressed. Like, when you think about it, that would be hard to bounce back from too. Seeing one of your buddies and
Yeah.
teammates end up in that situation. All these guys are going home to families at the end of the day,
Yep.
and it's just one of the things you hate to see.
Yep, 100%. That's gonna rattle anybody. I don't know how you go on, after that happens and then try to put it all out of your mind. So it's yeah, it was tough. It was scary. And yeah, good for Keegan to settle that right away. Whether it was dirty or not, unfortunately in the NHL, those type of things always come with having to quote unquote answer the bell. So yeah, it was a good scrap. They put that off to the side. I think the Jets players also knew that wasn't a nefarious or dirty
Intentional, yeah,
thing,
yeah.
right? So that's why you didn't see, I think, a lot of the extracurriculars that you maybe would see if it was deemed something a little bit more malicious. So yeah, they settled it real quick with the fight right away, and they got to move on. But mentally, that's so hard to do, and it's yeah, you never want to see that happen.
Moving on. Sorry, laughing at the chat because that's no laughing matter. I gotta be careful at that sometimes. But Bodie Clagg's been chomping at the bit. We gotta answer something for him before moving into another conversation. Mr. Meowcat and Rob Mahoney have been discussing in the chat. You had the first overall pick today. Who would you take if you're the Winnipeg Jets on January 6th? Bodie Clegg would like to know, and why.
So I haven't had a chance to dive too deep yet into the full kind of first set of guys there.
Capacity, yeah.
I think the biggest hole still for the Jets, yeah, Stenberg seems to be the growing kind of favorite that I've been seeing get the rub lately, especially after the World Juniors tournament. I still really like Verhoff. That still might be my kind of preferred spot to go to, but I do see a lot of the attention's been shifted to Stenberg, so that's one that I want to go back, watch a little bit more of his stuff specifically, and kind of get a bit of a feeling for. So my initial thought, and up to this point, I've been hashtag vibing for Verhoff, but I do see that Stenberg's really the hot up and comer for names online, so that's when I want to go back and take a peek. I know McKenna, for some reason, seems to have fallen off some people's number one spot. I don't know if it's just the fatigue of hearing his name at number one overall the whole way through, but I'm curious to see what you think.
Yeah. Don't want to overreact to the World Juniors, but I see a little Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele and Gavin McKenna. They'll probably at a much higher capacity for playmaking and vision IQ. I'm still in on Gavin McKenna as a player. I've seen some pretty insane takes coming out of the World Juniors. You don't become a number one level prospect since you were like 15 years old and lose that over a not ideal but still pretty damn good
I was
performance.
gonna say, still a pretty good. Like, well, he didn't have a bad tournament at all. He was
Agreed.
still good. Like, that's why I'm shocked that so
The
many people
semifinal
all of a
sticks out.
sudden.
Correct.
I'm guessing though it feels like maybe people have got a little bit of that number one overall fatigue, just that they've seen his name stuck in that spot the whole way through.
But I'm not. Yeah, that was my way of like getting there. But I am a Stenberg guy, and I've been a Stenberg guy for a few weeks now.
Okay.
The big thing with Ivar Stenberg, I think, when you look at the relative leagues they're playing in, so Gavin McKenna took the jump and went to the NCAA. about a point a game player there, which is still damn good for a draft eligible, but it hasn't been to the level of previous number 1 picks. He is a winger too, not a center, though so is Stenberg. There's been a lot of perimeter to his game where he's really stood out with the skill set in the NCAA on the PP. Now, another side of it is with the nil and the fact you can go back and forth from the CHL to the NCAA without any repercussion like you could previously.
Yep.
I do think we are seeing the best version of the NCAA that we've seen. So the fact he's putting up a point a game and is draft eligible, I think is still strong. Stenberg, though, is doing something we haven't seen in pro leagues in Sweden with how his first half has gone. We have not seen, and we've seen guys like Leo Carlson coming out in Anaheim as the most recent example, didn't produce to this level that Ivar Stenberg is. Now, I'm not saying that means he's going to be better than Leo Carlson, who I think is going to be a top 10 center in this league. But when you're putting up that kind of production, playing a pro league in Sweden at 17, he also had, like, I guess the one thing, if you want to look at the tournament, it felt like he was that big moment, big game player that there's a bit more bite to than Gavin McKenna. I think that stands out to people.
Yep.
So today, if you were to ask me, there's a lot of time left. I'm taking Ivar Stenberg, leaving right now.
There you go. You heard it here. Ivar Stenberg going to be better than Leo Carlson.
In the chat, we go. Caitlin Doucette says Stenberg is their pick. The Whaler 56 says, I'm leaning Verhoff still. Big right-handed D that can produce and move. Loves Stenberg.
Yep.
Hoping that Lawrence could pop off, moving to the NCAA and make himself. And I think, honestly, Tynan Lawrence is the dark horse in the Winnipeg Jet spot, where he's the big center in this draft. I think he's firmly in this top 4. And I'm curious to see what this move to the NCAA does for his stock. But if you're looking to take your shot at a number 1 center, it is Tynan Lawrence. So that's a name to track the rest of the year. Harjivan Parwana says Stenberg. McKenna has more adjustments he has to make for the NHL. However, Ty Lawrence is going to be Jack Eichel light. Ooh.
I like that.
I like that. See, right after we were just talking about Tynan Lawrence, I like that comp. The Whaler also says McKenna was still very productive, and Canada was 9-2 in goals for and against with him on the ice at 5-on-5, which is still damn good. I think you're right about the fatigue a little bit. Harjivan Parana also says McKenna is so legit, though. Going to be a potential 100-point guy once he gets going. Mackie says, well, this is an interesting one. I can see a bit of DeMello too in McKenna, especially taking the dumb cross-check penalty near the end of games. Flashback to the Sens game. Caitlin Doucette says Verhoff is also great, but I'm worried he gets stuck in the Jets development purgatory, whereas either of the forwards would almost certainly come straight in.
Yeah, that's true. That'd be I would hate to see them draft a young defenseman like that real high and then have him toil away for a couple years.
Brendan Labar says McKenna's been McKenna since he was 10 years old. He's probably the safest pick. It's kind of like the Seth Jones hype in 2013 and the recent hype other guys shouldn't take away from his accomplishments. I think that's the most sane way to look at it, especially when you're taking such a small sample size in which Canada dominated his minutes in. We're looking at one game where I think he's getting a lot of negative attention. I think his play style does play into that in some of the concerns with the NHL game. But this is someone that's been the best player at his age group for 6-7 years, and there's no secret as to why. The Whaler points out on Stenberg, the dude is near a point per game in the SHL, not junior SHL. That's nutty. And that's the big sell for me. You want to talk about someone that's coming in right away, someone that's been doing against pro. He's doing something potentially at a point of game that we haven't seen a draft eligible do in Swedish's pro league.
Yeah, that's huge, right? The level of competition should play a big factor.
For sure, for sure. On this one, a couple more things. Caitlin Doucette says McKenna is still very good, but it doesn't look like he's going to be a generational talent people thought he was a few years ago, and isn't clear the best player in the draft anymore. I got to say, the next generational looks like Landon DuPont next year, so if you want to buckle in for a back-to-back tank, I'll go Stenberg, DuPont, back-to-back years.
I could work with that.
Nicholas at night says, I could see the org picking anyone and somehow fucking it up no matter what. Yeah, some takes there. We'll keep diving into prospects as things go. For me, the short list, if I was honest today, the short list for me so far, what I've been able to gather, would be Stenberg 1, McKenna 2. I would likely lean Lawrence 3, with the opportunity that he might get the one for me.
Yeah.
And then I want to watch a bit more of Verhoff and Smits when I'm looking at defensemen in this draft. That's kind of where I'm at with the draft coming up and what I've done for research so far.
Yep. Yeah, totally agree. It's there seems to be a few different good options that are distinctly different, right? You've got a big center that you could potentially go with. You've got that, long-standing, potentially number 1 overall winger, and then you've got the big mobile, smooth skating defenseman there. So it's it'll be interesting to see what the strategy ends up being and what they value.
Yeah, still a ways away from that, but it's pretty interesting to discuss, and obviously there's some hope to get from that side of things and where the Winnipeg Jets are right now. What did I want to say? There was somewhere I wanted to bounce to. Mr. Meowcat has been asking a few questions on where this is going, and me and Mr. Meowcat have been debating back and forth on the future of the Winnipeg Jets virtually all day on Discord right now. I appreciate his insight. He is worried about a rebuild taking too long as he approaches 80. He wants to know, is Chevy part of the core? It's safe to say he is. Speaking of doing research, did you see what my main GM candidate got a big job in the NHL today?
Yeah, that's right. Apparently, there are some landing strip fans south of the border as well.
The Columbus Blue Jackets subscribed to get us over 600 last night, which thanks again, folks. We passed the nice round 600, 611 subs on YouTube. Keep liking and commenting and sharing this show. It's reaching new eyes every day. It's been great to see. Great to communicate with more and more Jets fans and get different perspectives. So thank you for that. But the Blue Jackets decided to go get Lawrence Gilman for themselves, the VP of Hockey Ops. Hey, sometimes I get some things pretty well.
Hey, look, if a fan can be the owner of the team and president of hockey operations, I think these fans here can suggest somebody that would be a pretty good choice. And look, he ends up getting hired by an NHL team. So again, you can be surprised that Lawrence Gilman ends up as the VP of Hockey Ops, or you can just listen to the landing strip.
Ain't that the truth? Real DFB on the draft says it's a decent draft. Sucks there's no Celebrini availability. The one thing you could say, Celebrini was sold as not being the next guy and became the guy. I think we make sweeping conclusions on 17-year-olds a little quick. We'll see.
Yep.
I don't expect there to be a generational there based on some of what we're seeing. But you just don't know at this age. There's still a lot of jump.
Yep.
But Mr. Meowcat did have this question. And I'm curious about your take because this was coming up more and more in conversations today. The Winnipeg Jets have lost 10 games. The Winnipeg Jets have won 2 games since December 1st, if I'm not mistaken now. They're well under 300 points percentage since November. If I'm not mistaken, since the 93 record, they're under 300 now. They're the lowest points percentage in the league. It's getting to a point where even this idea that they can go on some miracle run isn't even going to drag them out of the top 5 of the league when you start looking at the gap we're talking about here.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Meowcat had a question. I think we've made it very clear on where we stand with where things should go and are probably going. But I find this side of it interesting. And it's something that we won't know, but I am curious your take on it. Mr. Meowcat had asked, who is the first Winnipeg Jets core piece that sees what's going on here and says, you know what, I like greener pastures? And do we see that this year, this summer, or next year?
Ooh, that's a good question. That's tough. Because the answer, so I have the answer that jumps into my head right away. The tough part is that it hurts. It hurts real bad. It hurt real bad when I brought it up the first time about a month ago. It hurt real bad when we talked about it yesterday. The answer is Josh Morrissey.
Ooh, okay.
The answer is Josh Morrissey because he's not signed long term. He isn't completely set where the pen has gone to paper. They've built it and they're good to go. His agent would also know that he would be such a coveted piece out on the market, whether that's as a free agent or as a trade piece, that if things aren't fixed, if this continues to spiral, and that sense of, helplessness does start to break into the locker room, to me, that is the first person that would go, I can't be here for this. If I'm going to win a cup, if I'm going to, cash in on my last big contract and still be somewhere that's competitive, I don't know if that can be Winnipeg. So, if things don't get on the right path, I think it's Morrissey.
Okay, I owe Mr. Meowcat an apology. I am sorry. Says not approaching 80. Where the next good Jets team is 10 to 20 years out. When I am close to 80. I appreciate everyone's perspective. I would prefer a short rebuild. I misread something earlier. That is on me. Sorry about that. So your concern, Mr. Meowcat, is my concern about the Jets not pulling the trigger in the next 24 months on it, because I think they need to cash in on their asset value to make sure that they have another competitive team within the next 10 years, probably sooner, given who their assets are.
Yep.
But it depends when it starts. On your take, yours is Josh. Zero Go State says Josh is gone. Parmaline says JMO was the biggest trade asset the Jets have. We know that I think Josh is going to be the first one just because of contract status and the business of the sport. I see Mike Friesen says Kyle Connor with his hand up, and wouldn't that make me happy? But Brendan LeBar pours some cold water on that, saying it's going to be so frustrating when 81 and 55 will only wave together. I have a different take, and it crossed my mind for the first time today, losing 10 straight. I think you're on the right track of why someone might wave, being that they want to win a cup, and it's being trying to win a cup. And I think Morrissey will get there the closer to his deal being done, and the Jets will know they have to pull their bullet. The one I'm worried about, I don't know about worried, because it'll be sad. I do wonder if we get to a Patrick Wall moment with Hellebuck, because he's made it very clear. He's been very loyal to this org. He really respects them for giving them an opportunity. Really was glad to be a part of this. But the one person that's made it no secret that he's got one mission left in this league. He's got one thing he wants left. And he said he wanted to do it here. But if you start looking at what's happening here, the one I do think, if we were to see a public type request from a star, I do worry it's Connor Hellebuck.
Ooh, yep, that one would hurt real bad. And yeah, we can't. I can't see Hellebuck go out without a cup. It would be too heartbreaking to waste such an incredible career and talent, and to know that they never gave him the opportunity to really, get it over.
Well, the one thing too, and I see the Whaler 56 calls Jinx, as he said, JMO is going to be the biggest return, but I think Helly may be asked out. He's the vocal about wanting to win a cup, and he doesn't see it here. He wants out. Mr. Meowcat says he wins Olympic gold first. Oh, choosing U.S.
Wow.
Who I think had much bigger snubs than Canada. I'm actually pretty
especially
confident
on
with Canada
defense.
going
That was
into the
crazy.
Olympics. Defense and Robertson, man.
Robertson was
not
nuts.
being there.
Yeah, that's insane.
It's not racist, but it does feel racist. You know what I'm saying?
Right?
Like you wonder about it a little bit when a top 5 player from the U.S. and their current situation can't crack their Olympic team.
Right.
But Mr. Meowcat also predicts Helly. We'll see where that goes. We're not there yet. We haven't heard anything like that.
Yeah.
But I do think when you start thinking about the mental grind for the players in that dressing room and where it's got to go and be at this point, 10 games in a row is a lot. We're now 2.5 months into this slugfest, whatever you want to call it, in which the core guys were promised a chance to always be competitive, and their GM fucked them to a historic level. At some points, you gotta wonder about it.
Yeah, and the worst part is he doesn't even notice that he's done that and is still trying to put the blame everywhere else but at his own feet. So it's hard to see it changing or things, getting better in the short term, which then only kind of exacerbates the issues that you're going to have in the long term. So, yeah, I don't know how the Jets get themselves out of this one right now. I'm looking forward to that number 1 overall pick that's coming down the road here. But after that point, it's like the last scene at the in the movie The Graduate, right, where they're on the bus and they kind of look at each other and they're like, I don't know what the fuck we're supposed to do going forward here, and the movie just ends. Except the movie doesn't end, and we've got to figure out what the fuck happens after we get this pick, because, like I said, I don't trust this management group to get them out of the problem that they've built for themselves.
I'll get there in a second, but I oddly feel really good about where the Winnipeg Jets management is with this team, actually, based on Drager today. But we'll get to that in a second. Nicholas at Night says, nothing hurts at this point. After Chevy's presser, I haven't felt this detached from this club. It's clearly Chipman's toy. I would be happy for Connor Hellebuck to fulfill his goal, and it's not going to happen in the 204. I think that sums up how a lot of feel about the Winnipeg Jets right now.
Yep.
DFB had asked the interesting question is what team? And maybe I'll present it at some point. After game 9 or 8, I can't remember what one it was. Might have gotten into the gummies, and I might have blown up the Winnipeg Jets on Puckpedia. Maybe we'll dive into that, and I'll share it at some point. But I traded off everybody. Maybe we'll talk about that at some point, and what a blow-up could look like in Winnipeg. Because that's how I spent one of my evenings.
We're cool.
Nerd, eh? Okay. So we got to... I ended up sending Hellebuck to Carolina, by the way.
Oh, great. Him and Ehlers get to hang out.
Up together like we always expected.
Like we all, just how we drew it up.
You know what I found funny today, actually? Carolina Hurricanes Twitter has decided Mark Scheifele is a 2C target for them.
Oh.
And how funny, ironic would it be if Mark Scheifele ended up in Carolina playing second line with Nick Ehlers and Rob Brindamore telling him to get used to it, and they win a cup together. I'm into these real cruel scenarios at this point. I want this to make the Jets look stupid at this point.
You know, I think that would count as a Winnipeg Jets Stanley Cup. I think that counts at that point, because that would be fucking hilarious if he got there and he's like, I'm not playing with him. And Rod's like, yeah, you fucking are. And also it's going to work really well, you idiot.
But I want to talk about that.
And like, you couldn't have sent Hellebuck to Montreal. They need a goalie out there.
I'm absolutely kicking my feet up with the Winnipeg Jets right now. I'm at a point. Acceptance is hit. We got it out. Chevy's a moron. The whole hockey world's going to know it. It's going to be printed in every hockey history book moving forward. Kevin Cheveldayoff is not escaping this. Yeah. They may try and strong-arm this market and play the big man, but guess what? Hockey history will not be cruel. Will be very cruel to that man. But outside of this loss, as Sugar Hill Sleep says, not gonna lie, I was hoping we would lose. A top 3 pick is so valuable. It is absolutely essential at this point to save this franchise with the way it's being ran. We need a top 3 pick. Everybody buckle in. It's going to be all good. But we got some new reporting from Darren Drager. He's got some new material. He's not peddling Lambert and Hanel anymore for a big ad. We got some new intel from Drager. So, he says, this is how it goes. They're not throwing in a towel. They're shopping for a scorer with some term, but mentions there's none available. He suggests the team understands the unrest on the market, which I call bullshit. This one thing that Jets have done really poorly is understand the market.
Yep.
If you look back at history. Says maybe it's an unproven young player with upside that they look to acquire. And says uncertainty, what they'd be willing to unload for said asset. Do you hear that stuff from Darren Drager? What does that say to me? Because I think the picture and the tea leaves are loud and clear, and I'm very, very excited.
Well, we can't also skip Pierre LeBrun's comment right afterwards as well, saying that the NHL Jets are desperate and must make a move before the Olympic freeze because they have to save this season.
Yeah, Pierre LeBrun's not very bright, though. See,
no,
the thing with Pierre LeBrun,
that one made me laugh real hard, though. That one was great.
See, the thing with Pierre LeBrun, there's always a guy in the group. So Darren Drager I think people know my thoughts on Darren Dreger. Maybe I shouldn't go there today. Pierre LeBrun just brings nothing of value to the TSN broadcast. He got hired because he could speak French and get onto the RDS feeds. Every single Pierre LeBrun rumor is this may happen or this may not happen, but this is something that maybe should happen. And it's like you're not telling anybody or anything. I could sit here right now and say, guess what? The Winnipeg Jets may trade Connor Helmbuck. They may not. But this is a situation you might want to monitor. That is every single Pierre LeBrun story on TSN. Tell me the last time he's broken anything. So for him to start being an analyst right now, stick to what you do, buddy.
Ugh.
Stick to what you do.
Yep.
Don't want to fucking hear it.
For a 32nd place team, that one made me laugh so fucking hard.
There's a reason why he's not a highlight feature to that show. Let's be honest. But
so what did Dreger's comments? What did that spell out for you?
oh, it spelled out. We're all good, buddy. No concerns in Winnipeg. Let's piece this together. We will not get until probably the deadline, press conference after the deadline. We will not get a true throwing in the towel comment from the org unless season ticket holders go real bad and they have to make some kind of public statement. So I don't expect Dreger to start saying that now. And remember, the insiders are used. They're very much used by teams.
The mouthpiece.
Shopping for a scorer with term. That's what they were floating Brad Lambert and Billy Hanola for. And I guarantee at some point, at least one GM told Chevy to fuck off. You're peddling that shit. This is how I'm reading into it. They're shopping for a score with term, and he mentions there's none available. With the Winnipeg Jets asset pool, and we talked about this after the press, being where it's at, they don't have the pieces to even get a score with term. This idea that they're going to get one, don't worry, it's off the table. It's a fantasy land. It can't happen. It can't. None that is going to be impactful enough to ruin this team's draft position with how firm this tank is. They don't have the pieces to do it on any scale.
Yep.
So they're signaling to try and suggest to this market, hey, we're trying to find a sexy scorer for the next few years for you guys. They will not be able to pull this off. They won't. Not worried about it.
Yep. I for once, I'm actually feeling okay about it. I've been worried that they were going to panic react and try to, make a rental, try to find a stopgap. Between Dreger's comments and Chevy's comments today during the intermission as well, also really made me feel like that wasn't the case. He specifically said they're not looking for a rental. When he was asked, what can you do, as the GM right now to, fix things, to try to get this back on track? Nothing he said involved changing the roster. Nothing he said involved shopping for pieces. It was all about just having conversations, planning meetings, working with scouts. He even went as far as to say that expectations are different than last year, that this is an unpredictable league and you can plan all you want, but where we are is where we are. That really, to me, said at that point that he gets that they're not going to be able to get back into this. And expectations are different than last year. That one, hopefully that means that we're not going to be overpaying for a rental.
No, we're not. I'm gonna finish up with Dragers, but thanks for that because I haven't seen that interview yet, and that just makes me feel even better about everything. Hey, come here. I gotta take him out soon. Dragers says the team understands the unrest in the market, so clearly they saw how bad the reaction was everywhere yesterday. Still don't buy they truly understand. But here's where it gets crucial and where this is trending. Says maybe it's an unproven young player with upside and then uncertainty about what they're willing to unload for said asset. That makes me think, because when you start thinking about how do you acquire unproven young players with upside at the deadline, how do you do it?
Right.
You sell off key pieces from your team. And if you're talking about getting unproven young players and not just picks, we're not talking about the UFAs here.
No.
There might be a bit of a selling bomb coming out of Winnipeg with that slight indication from Dreger, because when you think about the reality of these situations, Winnipeg doesn't have the youth to go get a scorer with term. Winnipeg doesn't have the rentals to get an unproven young player on the fringe of an NHL roster.
Nope.
That's going to have to come in a bigger package, I think.
Yep, 100% agree.
So I'm feeling comfortable.
I've got your average Jets fan here on the line. If you're ready for one call.
Okay, let's go to it.
All right. Thanks for holding. Your average Jets fan. You're on the air.
Thank you, guys. How are you doing?
We're doing good. How about you?
Well, I don't know. I was on suicide watch after the Chevy press conference, but we're good. We recovered. So
We're here
But,
for you.
uh,
Don't worry. We're here for you.
I know. That's why, don't stop thinking about tomorrow. That's it. But in all seriousness, I just wanted to say, my big question with the Jets, my kind of prerequisite is that, we know that we don't have, a McDavid Draisaitl or, a McKinnon, Makar, et cetera. But, one thing that I've also learned, just because, I don't know, you watch, even watching Pasternak in the building, and Pasternak has terrible line mates, and he still shows to be a cut above, a Mark Scheifele and a Kyle Connor. I think the big picture is, if Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele are not definitively good enough to be the two best players on a Cup team, what's the purpose of retooling anyways? You know what I mean?
Correct.
If we had franchise-defining, franchise, Hall of Famers that we knew were really, the best of the best, I think you could justify retooling any day of the week. It's the reason why Boston won't trade McAvoy and Pasternak unless they have to, for example. But that's the big, first thing with me. But the second thing is, if you guys don't know anything about me, I'm also a Calgary Flames fan.
I was going to go there.
It's also rough goings, but the two players that made me a fan of that team, Johnny Gaudreau and Matthew Tkachuk, they were both phenomenal on both ends. Rest in peace, Johnny Gaudreau. Just a great human. But those two were superstars, and then they both left in the off season in the summer of 2022, and the Calgary Flames tried everything they could to try and avoid the fact that they didn't have the horses anymore to actually have a sustainable Cup window. And I think that now a common rhetoric that people have within the fan base is that, in the summer of 2022, if we had accepted the fact that we couldn't do it, and instead of acquiring Jonathan Huberdeau, another trade package they had on the table was either Jarvis or Natchez, and either one or two firsts that came along with it. They could have went younger and jump-started the rebuild process. I think Winnipeg will try and sell you and strong-arm us into this bullshit that, hey, if we take just one off season, we might be able to have a semi-competent team that can actually keep this window open. But the way I see it is that it'll be 2028, and we'll have a 35-year-old Scheif, a 35-year-old Helly, 33-year-old Kyle Connor, and we'll be saying, shit, we could have been young, and we could have been opening and really starting a decade-long window of winning. So that's the big thing with me. It's what's the point of trying to keep a 2 or 3 year window open where it's I don't believe the big guns can get it done anyways, where we can open up a decade long worth of the winning. So I don't know. I just figured it was a unique perspective because we probably won't talk about it much now, but in 2 to 3 years I could see there being some regret within the fan base.
And as you know, we've had this discussion. My biggest concern is I've watched the mistakes Vancouver and Calgary made in real time. I remember those decisions, and I remember the point of the franchise they're at. And my big takeaway, you had to do the Tkachuk thing, and I wasn't as familiar with the other pieces. But Uyghur was always going to be the best asset there when you look at how the market works. And Huberdeau was a sneaky second-line merchant that you could have dumped him for future assets and still had a Uyghur, or found a way to some middle ground rather than bet on everything that you got. The way I see it, and I think you see it similar here, at some point, I think it's going to take some time, but the window is wide open to do it. There's not a single seller in the league right now. You want to talk about maximizing selling assets? This is the year to do it when the league is so tight. You sometimes walk into scenarios you're not expecting. Sometimes you're gifted some opportunities you're not expecting. And sometimes you got to look a gift horse in the face and take it. Because the way I see it, and I think this is where you're at, the Winnipeg Jets are at a crossroads where they can go the Calgary path, or they could take a shot at becoming the 17-18 Winnipeg Jets again and giving themselves a brand new window. And this is where I think Mr. Meowcat and this idea of a quick retool around these star players is actually signing up for longer term pain than they realize at this moment. And I think the next 12 to 18 months, this conversation is going to be very obvious to a lot of people.
100%. And I was thinking about my doomsday scenario, but let's say the Winnipeg Jets draft Gavin McKenna and we're happy, but they try and go that retool route. Let's say they spend 2 or 3 years and it doesn't work, and now you're starting to kick off your rebuild with a 21-year-old McKenna, and all of a sudden you have a really shorter timeline, kind of like with Boston, or not Boston, but like Buffalo, with how it's like, hey, we have this first overall pick who's starting to get into their early 20s in the prime of their career. Do they want to stick around until they're 24, 25 to wait for a superpower? They might, like, the timeline might be shortened in that case. But in my opinion, like, if the Jets get a top 4 pick, I'm not a prospect guru. I'll never work for an NHL team with that. I try my best to watch guys, but like the top 4 players in this draft, you either get McKenna or Stenberg, who will both be franchise-defining wingers. You'll either get Keaton Verhoff, who will be a number 1 defenseman like a Josh Morrissey is, or you'll get Tynan Lawrence, who in my opinion is just he's incredibly underrated just because he played in the USHL, and I'm so fired up he's going to BU. But like he actually reminds me so much of Jack Eichel in a real 1C. So in my opinion, if you can scoop up any one of those guys and you get one of the major checklists crossed off, like there's a big chance, like if you draft any of those forwards, they're the best forward in franchise history, Jets 1.0. It's not even close, man. That's my opinion. So you get that big start, like you cross it off immediately, and then you add in a Salo, and you keep Perfetti, you keep Sandberg probably, and you can be 2-3 years into it, and then it's like, hey, we're actually ready to go now. We're starting to, like a Montreal rebuild. Mikey, I know you're a big Montreal guy, but like, I don't know. I think it's interesting, but I appreciate you guys. I'm going to hang up and eat my dinner and listen in on this, but God bless you guys. Happy New Year.
Hey, bless you and Happy New Year. Thank you for the call and your well thought out thoughts. And I think what's interesting, and I think your opinion and your approach and what you've seen with Calgary is really important here because if you listened yesterday, Cody had called in and really highlighted some of the draft comparisons. And one of the biggest takeaways I got from people was it really opened their eyes to what actually happens outside this market. It's important to remember, like, a lot of people have lives too and aren't as dedicated to what's going on in the NHL outside of Winnipeg. So to be able to highlight someone that's really paid attention to Calgary and the mistakes they made is what the Winnipeg Jets want to avoid so that they're not going into a long-term painful process. I appreciate you taking the time to call as always. And yeah, Mikey, what's your thoughts there?
You know, the Calgary comparison is such a good comparison. Also staying, close to home there. If you ask an Edmonton Oilers fan, how they feel about Connor McDavid's ELC years, right? Yeah. What a fucking waste that was. You had a guy that came into the league that was ready to play, that was lighting it up, that was, very quickly, he was Connor McDavid fairly fast, and they just absolutely squandered the ability to add, real talent and big contracts kind of around him for a short run, just of how bad things kind of went during that run. And you don't want to do that with a high-end pick. You don't want to bring in a guy like that and then, waste those ELC years, those very valuable years, right? When you have a bunch of guys who are playing well above their contract status, that's how you build a winner. That's how you go out there and put yourself over, and you don't want to waste that opportunity. So yeah, it's a great way to kind of see things. And like we've talked about before, the difference between being unintentionally bad and how long a rebuild takes need to be delineated, right? You need to know that being bad doesn't count as a rebuild. It doesn't start until they make that decision to actually ship out a core piece and reshape what the roster really looks and feels like. So yeah, I 100% agree. You don't want to drag it on too long. The Habs are a great example. You went to the Cup final and went, yeah, that was a fluke. This is not a group that is built for long-term success. Let's pull this apart. Let's actually see what we have here, and let's start the rebuild. And it's starting to come to fruition now with those draft picks. So yeah, that's an absolutely wonderful comparison. What a great call.
A few more on this topic, and we'll get into the tank sim of the night as The beauty of this shitstorm, we found a way to move the show to an hour and a half these days lately, which is great to chat with all of you. Um, Interesting takeaway from Kalen Doucette after listening to the Drager stuff and kind of where this convo was gone. I like this takeaway actually, and I wonder if this is true because when you listen to GM's talk, most trades typically start with another team calling someone and asking if someone's available, and it's normally the better team calling the worst team. Sometimes you'll see GMs leak stuff like, "Hey, everyone's available, let's go," when things are really bad. But generally speaking, based on conversations I've heard, it seems that the buying team tries to go find a selling team. So Kalen Doucette here with a very interesting comment. Good chance what happened was teams started calling the Jets about guys because of the lack of sellers. And Chevy was surprised by what was being offered. What do you think of that theory when you pair it with Darren Drager's unproven developing young player tidbit? Because I think that's really interesting right now, actually.
That'd be interesting if he's surprised by what teams are offering up at this point, considering the players that he has available, the way the market works, and just the way that you want to make trades from a position of strength, not weakness, right? Everybody knows that type of shit. If he's surprised by the offers and things that are coming in, it just goes to show that he's not up to this job, that he doesn't have he doesn't have a real understanding of both what he has and what the rest of the NHL market is like, which is why I think they need somebody more connected in that management group to come in, whether that's above him, below him, wherever. They don't have anybody that really gets, I think, the rest of the NHL. And the way things went at the deadline last year, I think, is a great example of it, where he thought they were getting Brock Nelson the whole way through. There was no question about it. No plan B, no way to pivot, no other quote unquote irons in the fire, as he likes to say. They were all in on one guy who was not coming here, and they had no fucking clue about it. So, yeah, I hope that's not the case, that he's, surprised by the actual value of what he has. But yeah, I think it would be more of an indictment on the fact that we just don't have somebody connected.
I think I agree with you. When you think of being an exec in that spot, you should always have a handle of where the market is and how they're valuing your players. I do think the Winnipeg Jets' current situation, the situation that is going on around the league, and Kalen Doucette says he probably didn't realize you could trade prospects instead of picks for assets. Like, there's a lot to slander Chevy here for. I will say this. If we do buy the idea that he doesn't have a good handle, I genuinely do think a lot of people listening to this show, a lot of people that are fans of this show, given the reality of the state of the league, would be surprised at some of the names that are coming up if you were to put some of those big pieces on the block. Because what I think is interesting about Caitlin's point here is the idea, if there's some big time prospects that are available, we're not talking about the guys that he would have been shopping willingly. Someone could have called with a, "Hey, that Gabe Velarde guy might fit into our top six," and it might not have been a conversation he was looking at having a month ago, and all of a sudden there's been some names. Something to keep in mind. I think that's a really astute point from Caitlin on what might have happened to trigger what's going on there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mike Friesen says, "I like that theory," and says phase 2 is when we start hearing lots of interest in DeMello, Barron, etc. But oh boy, it'll cost a lot. This is how you read the tea leaves of the insiders. Exactly where that goes. The Winnipeg Jets start this with, they're still in it. They're still in it. We get leaks that they're looking at young, unproven players. The next step is we're going to hear them floating the names that they think they can get the most from and pretend that they're not trying to sell them. I like that from Mike Friesen. This is how the game works, and this is how to keep in mind when you see reports coming out, because the Jets are going to be on the opposite side of reports that we're used to.
Ooh, here's a great question for Mr. Meowcat real quick. Which team gets to a Stanley Cup first, Utah or Winnipeg? We'll say even just in the final.
If the Winnipeg Jets were committed to a lottery pick and blowing it up, I would pick the Winnipeg Jets. If they are not, I would pick Utah. That's how stark I think it is. Like, on this topic, I'll get to you in a second here, Mikey, but I think this is a good way to add this in. I think Nicholas at Night makes a really good point to Mr. Meowcat on this topic, saying, "I have a dad going to be 70. I want the Jets to win a cup so bad because of how much it would mean to him. It would make me happier that he got to see it. Then I would be happy to see it myself." But also says, there is no window anymore. And fast tracking a window which the org has the possibility to do, is the only realistic way this team contends again within the next 10 years. I do think it is that stark where the Winnipeg Jets have quality assets. They're going to stumble ass backwards into a lottery pick, and they could supercharge something very special when you look at the haul that they could get, the amount of draft capital they could get, the amount of young talent that would be forced to play in Winnipeg. And we saw it with this first core. I think Pomerley made a good point that people can't get too attached to the current names in Winnipeg. They are assets at the end of the day. We all fell in love with this core.
Yep.
Saw them sign long-term. We're a part of this. Who's to say that that's not waiting around the corner with a higher upside version? Now, of course, it might fall apart, but guess what? It's falling apart with them here.
Yeah.
If they were to commit to it, we're talking about 3 to 4 high-end assets for the big 3 to 4 guys on this team around a guy that's a lottery pick already and likely a lottery pick next year. You're talking about quite the situation brewing at a time when Colorado will be moving backwards. Minnesota, depending on what happens with Hughes, might be moving backwards. Dallas might be. You'd be starting a pretty incredible window of time.
Yep.
When the current elite top of the Central, which leads the entire league, by the way, is starting to fade off. It puts the Winnipeg Jets in a situation I can't help but fantasize about. But if they don't do it, the longer this goes on, I would pick Utah. What do you think there?
I think you're kind of dead on. Yeah, you talked earlier about how the history books are going to remember things, right? I feel like we're going to see what happened at the end of that 2017-2018 run. Everything that kind of, happened in between, see this one deep run that we had last year with that President's Trophy, and then see again another maybe desert on the other side of it, right? It's kind of shaping up to look back as not a super long window that we were promised of, year in, year out, deep playoff runs. It kind of, it looks like it might be shaping out that the Jets hit 2 runs over this span, delayed the rebuild, for so long afterwards that it ended up taking that 10-year dreaded rebuild that people talk about when in fact they were just unintentionally bad for, more than half of it.
And Mr. Meowcat says, Super Hall with Chevy in charge. Here's the interesting part of it all. I don't trust Kevin Cheveldayoff to take the step. But if he was willing to take the step, I oddly really trust him to make the trades that would be involved there. Because of the built trust with the core. 3 of the 4 have no move clauses. You need that delicate touch there. I don't trust him to get to this reality, but I oddly would trust him to do this part of the process, if that makes sense. I would want someone else managing the next step, but this is oddly where I think his wheelhouse actually is.
As logically, I agree. Logically, that it makes sense. I just don't think you can have any type of fresh start with him in that spot, even if he may handle that with a bit of a deft hand. I think he's lost that opportunity and that the buy-in to have the trust that you would need to go out and make it afterwards. So logically, I definitely agree. You're right. I think emotionally it'd be too hard.
No, I agree, and that's why I think you're at a crossroads here with him as well, if we're being honest here.
Yep.
Snuggle Farts, you're 100% wrong on no one has interest in DeMello. I will bet you, send me a DM. I know what you enjoy. You know what I enjoy. I'll bet you he gets at least a second-round pick if the Winnipeg Jets were to move off from him. Likely plus as well.
Yeah, you could probably get something okay still for DeMello.
I think so.
Yeah.
But a lot of this talk, we will get there together. There is ways out. There is pathways. Every single loss that comes up the rest of the year puts us closer and closer to the inevitable reality happening sooner. These guys are stubborn. This organization is as stubborn as they come, but even they can't ignore the headlines that are coming. Someone had pointed out in the chat, the hockey guy is making a dedicated video to the Jets on YouTube. That's going to see eyeballs.
Yep.
You're going to see some national headlines with a 10-plus game losing streak. There will be enough embarrassment by what they built that we will see changes at some point. What that looks like, I'm excited to find out. Hang in there. The tank is rolling. Let's get into the tankathon, where we're looking at Ivar Stenberg today, and Choices TK points out on Stenberg, you have to go back to Matt Naslin to find a player who played a point per game level in the SHL. Stenberg has outproduced the draft years of the Sedin brothers, who went 1 and 2, Peter Forsberg, who went 6 overall, Leo Carlson, who went 2 overall, and Anton Frandel, who obviously went 3rd overall last year.
Good company to be in.
Good company to be in. Let's roll that sim and see if the Winnipeg Jets are drafting Ivar Stenberg on the way out
3.
of just a cinematic masterpiece of a blown game to keep the tank rolling to 10 games. It is incredible. Embrace it, folks. Take the pressure down. Find the comedy in this. This happens once every 100 years or whatever the history of the league is.
Yep.
Hilarious.
All right, let's hit it. 3, 2, 1. Number 2 overall, the St. Louis Blues pop up 1 spot.
Fuck the Blues.
So,
hey, we're drafting top 2.
They can
We're
have.
drafting top 2.
They'll take McKenna. We'll get Stenberg, and everybody goes away happy.
I could see that. I could see them going Verhoff number 1 too. Actually,
Verhoff, actually,
you
yeah.
like St. Louis.
Yep.
You look at the age of their decor. You look at the size and how Verhoff plays. I could see that's a team. I think when you look at how they've tried to build rosters, would take a Verhoff first. Honestly.
Yeah, you're right. I could see that for sure.
And on the way out, Snuggle Farts wants to remind us this is all Chad Lucius's fault. No one else is to blame. He should have been in that lineup tonight. The Winnipeg Jets find a new and miraculous way to keep the 10-game losing streak alive. We'll see you. What is it, Thursday now?
Thursday, yep.
There's a back-to-back Thursday, Friday. Mick Dre coming into town to make it 11. We'll see you back Thursday for another Tankathon special of the Winnipeg Jets 2025-2026 season. Thank you for being a part of the show. We'll talk to you Thursday.
Right on. Good night, everybody.